A 3-year-old girl vanishes from a holiday apartment while her parents eat dinner just meters away. No forced entry, no screams, no confirmed trace of where she went. Within hours, local police are overwhelmed. Within days, the story explodes across Europe. And within weeks, the name Madeleine McCann is known across the globe. In this video, we're going to examine one of the most haunting missing child cases in modern history, step by step. We'll look at the final known moments before Madeleine disappeared, the controversial investigation that followed, the changing theories and suspects, and the role the world's media played in shaping public opinion. This is not about sensationalism. It's about slowing down a case that has often felt chaotic and emotional, and trying to understand what we actually know, and what we still don't. Stay with me because some of the details of this story are not what you might expect. Before we dive in, a few important notes. This video is for informational and educational purposes only. Everyone mentioned is presumed innocent unless proven guilty in a court of law. Much of this case involves conflicting testimony, media interpretations, and evolving evidence. I'll distinguish clearly between verified facts, reported claims, and speculation. First, I'll walk you through the McCann family holiday in Praia da Luz, Portugal, and the exact timeline of the night of May 3, 2007. Then we'll look at the early police response, the forensic work, and how the investigation's focus shifted over time, from stranger abduction to parental involvement to new suspects years later. We'll also examine the unprecedented media coverage, how front-page headlines, TV debates, and online theories shaped public perception of the family, the police, and the search itself. Finally, we'll cover key developments in recent years and consider why this case still grips the world nearly 2 decades later. Let's start with the setting. In late April 2007, British doctors Jerry and Kate McCann traveled from the UK to Praia da Luz, a small resort town on Portugal's Algarve coast, for a family holiday. With them were their 3 children, twins Amélie and Sean, age 2, and Madeleine, just 3 years old. They stayed at a resort complex often described as family-friendly, with multiple apartments, a pool, and an on-site restaurant. The McCanns traveled with a group of friends, also doctors and professionals, who became known in the media as the Tapas 7 because they often dined together at the resort's tapas bar. The adults adopted a routine: children asleep in the apartments, adults eating dinner nearby while taking turns checking on the kids roughly every half hour. This checking system, informal and based on trust and familiarity, would later become a central point of debate, criticism, and legal scrutiny. Into this seemingly ordinary holiday, something catastrophic entered. May 3, 2007, began like a typical vacation day. In the morning, the children attended the resort's kids' club. Photos from that day show Madeleine smiling by the pool, wearing a sun hat, images that would later be printed in newspapers around the world. That evening, the McCanns put the 3 children to bed in apartment 5A, on the ground floor of a small block. Madeleine and her siblings slept in a bedroom right next to a window with shutters, while Kate and Jerry's room was on the other side of a small hallway. Around 8:30 p.m., the McCanns joined their friends at the tapas bar, approximately 50-60 meters away, with no direct line of sight to the apartment, but close enough that they felt comfortable checking regularly. Throughout the evening, different members of the group got up from the table to listen at doors or briefly enter apartments. By all accounts, nothing seemed unusual, until shortly after 10 p.m. The timeline between 9 o'clock and 10:15 p.m. is one of the most dissected aspects of this case. Around 9:05, Jerry reportedly checked on the children in 5A. He later said all 3 were asleep, and he distinctively remembered seeing Madeleine. On his way back, he encountered another guest, who briefly chatted with him. Around 9:15 to 9:30, a family friend went to listen outside the McCann's apartment. He claimed he did not enter, but heard no noise and assumed all was fine. Meanwhile, various members of the group checked on their own children in neighboring apartments. Sometime just after 10 p.m., Kate McCann went to do her check. She later reported that the bedroom door was more open than she had left it. When she tried to close it, it slammed, possibly indicating a draft. Entering the bedroom, she found Madeleine's bed empty. The twins slept on, undisturbed. Panic, then search, then a call that would start an international investigation. According to witness accounts, Kate ran back to the tapas bar, reportedly shouting, "They've taken her!" The group of friends quickly split up. Some stayed with the twins, others searched nearby streets, the pool area, and the beach. Staff at the resort were alerted. The apartment complex began an informal, chaotic search. Local police, the GNR, were called. Reports differ slightly on timing, but officers arrived within roughly 30-40 minutes. In those early hours, the building, its pathways, and surrounding roads were not fully sealed off. People came and went, including concerned guests, staff, and later, reporters. This lack of early scene preservation would later haunt the investigation. Potential footprints, traces, or subtle signs of entry and exit may have been disturbed or erased. Doors and shutters were opened and closed. Descriptions of exactly how the apartment and window were found began to differ. By morning, it was no longer just a missing child. It was a global story. From the beginning, there were two big questions. How could someone have entered and left the apartment? And did anyone see anything? The McCanns and some friends said a bedroom window and its external shutters had been found open, suggesting an intruder used that route. However, Portuguese police would later state they found no clear evidence of forced entry. Witnesses also came forward with potential sightings. One friend in the group reported seeing a man carrying a child in pajamas around 9:15 to 9:30 p.m., walking away from the apartment. Years later, another witness described a similar figure at a different time. These descriptions were used to create composite sketches broadcast worldwide. But the initial hours after the disappearance were fragmented. Multiple searches, incomplete records of who was where and when, and language barriers between British tourists and Portuguese officers, all in the midst of mounting pressure to find a missing 3-year-old before it was too late. In the days that followed, the investigation grew more complex. Portuguese authorities initially treated the case as a potential abduction, but also considered the possibility of an accident or other scenarios. British police became involved early, offering assistance, expertise, and later, specialized forensic teams. Media descended on Praia da Luz, satellite trucks, reporters, live broadcasts. The McCanns made emotional public appeals, holding up Madeleine's photo and asking for information. A distinctive image of Madeleine with one eye featuring a coloboma or visible defect became central to posters and campaigns. Tips poured in from around the world. Alleged sightings in airports, on trains, at service stations, in other countries entirely. Each needed to be assessed, logged, and often turned out to be nothing. Meanwhile, tension grew between the British media's intense coverage and the slower, methodical pace of the Portuguese judicial system. This friction, cultural and legal, soon spilled into how the investigation itself was perceived. As weeks turned into months, the focus of the investigation shifted repeatedly. One of the most controversial elements involved forensic work inside apartment 5A and a rental car the McCanns hired weeks after the disappearance. British specialist dogs were brought in, one trained to detect human blood, another to detect the scent of a cadaver. According to reports, the dogs alerted in certain areas of the apartment and near the McCanns' hire car. These alerts triggered intense speculation in the press. However, dog indications by themselves are not conclusive evidence. They must be supported by robust forensic analysis. Subsequent lab results were complex and, in many experts' view, inconclusive. Sample sizes were small, mixtures were present, and contamination could not be ruled out. Despite this, in September 2007, Portuguese authorities formally named Jerry and Kate McCann as arguidos, or official suspects. Worldwide, opinions split sharply. Some believed the parents were victims. Others suspected they knew more than they were saying. While the forensic and legal battles played out, another force was shaping the narrative: the media. British tabloids ran sensational headlines, often based on unnamed sources or partial leaks. Portuguese outlets, operating under different legal norms, published their own angles. Some coverage veered into outright accusation, speculation, and character judgment. The McCanns hired public relations advisors and legal teams, both to keep Madeleine's case public and to defend themselves. They launched the Find Madeleine campaign, set up a fund, and traveled extensively to meet politicians, the Pope, and law enforcement bodies. Critics argued that the media strategy was unusual and at times uncomfortable. Supporters said it was necessary in a world where missing kids are often forgotten quickly. Over time, multiple newspapers issued apologies and paid damages to the McCanns for unfounded allegations. The line between reporting and rumor became blurred, complicating not just public opinion, but potentially the investigation itself. In July 2008, Portuguese authorities formally archived the case, lifting the arguido status of the McCanns due to insufficient evidence to charge anyone. The disappearance of Madeleine McCann was now officially unsolved. But the story did not end there. Over the next few years, private investigators hired by the family pursued various leads, some centered on reported break-ins and suspicious individuals in the area around the resort in the days before May 3rd. Others examined child trafficking networks or opportunistic offenders traveling through the region. In 2011, after significant public and political pressure, the UK government supported a review of the case, codenamed Operation Grange, conducted by London's Metropolitan Police. The aim was to re-examine all available evidence from scratch and look for missed connections. This review generated new timelines, potential suspects, and appeals for information, keeping the case alive long after many others would have faded from public view. One of the most significant later developments emerged in 2020, when German authorities announced they were investigating a convicted sex offender, often referred to in the media as Christian B., in connection with Madeleine's disappearance. He had lived in the Algarve region at various times and had a history of serious crimes. German prosecutors publicly stated they believed Madeleine was dead and that they were treating the case as a murder investigation. However, as of this recording, no one has been charged specifically for her disappearance, and authorities have not presented the full evidential picture publicly. Searches were conducted at locations in Germany and Portugal linked to this suspect. Items were seized, analyzed, and cross-checked against existing case material. Still, without a body, definitive forensic links, or eyewitness testimony that stands up in court, the case remains legally unresolved. This development reignited debate. Are investigators finally closing in? Or is this another lead that may not meet the burden of proof? Beyond specific suspects, this case forces us to confront broader issues. First, the difficulty of cross-border investigations, different legal systems, evidence rules, and standards for public communication can pull in competing directions. Second, the role of memory and witness testimony. Many key statements were given under stress, translated, or recalled months later. Small inconsistencies, common in any human memory, were sometimes treated as proof of deception. Third, the question of parental decision-making. Leaving children alone in an unlocked or easily accessible apartment, even with regular checks, sparked fierce moral debate. The McCanns have repeatedly said they believed it was safe in that environment and deeply regret that choice. Finally, the emotional weight. At the center of theories, headlines, and legal documents is a 3-year-old child whose fate is still unknown. That uncertainty leaves space for endless speculation and makes definitive closure painfully elusive for everyone involved. Stepping back from the details, what can we actually take away from the disappearance of Madeleine McCann? First, early investigative decisions matter enormously. Delays in sealing scenes, coordinating witness statements, and preserving evidence can never be fully undone. This case has since been used in training materials to highlight those risks. Second, Media attention is a double-edged sword. It can keep a case alive, generate tips, and pressure authorities to act, but also spread misinformation, stigmatize innocent people, and push investigators toward premature conclusions. Third, complexity and uncertainty do not always lead to neat answers. Multiple plausible scenarios may coexist without enough evidence to definitively confirm any of them. And finally, behind every headline is a family whose lives were shattered in a single night. Whatever one's view of the investigation, that human cost should anchor how we talk about this case, and others like it, with care and humility. If you found this deep dive helpful and you want more long-form, carefully researched true crime and mystery breakdowns, this is where you can make a difference. Take a moment to like this video. It genuinely helps the algorithm surface balanced, fact-focused content over sensational hot takes. Subscribe if you haven't already, and turn on notifications so you don't miss future episodes where we unpack other complex cases with the same level of detail and caution. In the comments, let me know. Which aspect of the Madeleine McCann case do you think is most misunderstood? Early police work, media coverage, or later suspects? Keep it respectful. Remember, there are real people at the heart of this. Finally, if you have any information relevant to this or any missing child case, always contact law enforcement, not YouTube creators. Awareness matters, but real tips belong with investigators. Thanks for watching and for engaging with this story responsibly.